While I was still working for the mines, the church I went to was the church I later pastored for so many years. The pastor there was a Canadian pastor, under whose ministry I got saved, and I served as a deacon. Then I went to Bible school in Kitwe, the Assemblies of God Bible College. I'm an Assemblies of God ordained minister, but there was a time in my life when I needed blood transfusion. Then I joined the healing. I'm still Assemblies of God minister. I still hold credentials with the Pentecost Assemblies of God. I served there in many different capacities, not only as a pastor, but as district superintendent, assistant general superintendent. I was once the general treasurer of the Pentecost Assemblies of God. So I handled a few coins here and there. My counting wasn't perfect, and it's not a job I'll take again as a treasurer. I have said it will take God's voice to come and speak into my spirit with a loudspeaker for me to say, this is God. So while I was serving in Mufrela as a pastor there, God called us, my wife, we've been married for 45 years. Wow. And we have 4 grown-up children. My oldest son is 2 years younger than our marriage, which means he's 43. And the last born is 31. Those are my babies. So I have 3 boys, 1 girl, 43, 41, 37, 31. Wow. Now you are wondering what happened there between the third and the fourth. Well, we thought we were done. Then suddenly this chap says, not yet. So he popped out. So we ended up having 3 boys and 1 girl. So God called us into ministry. We went into ministry under the auspices of WEC, Worldwide Evangelization for Christ. It was for crusade. But because they worked in countries where the word crusade is offensive, then they put Christ there. So they sent us to West Africa to go and start a work amongst the people in the northern part of Ghana, in the Upper East. And we had to start the work right up from the scratch. We didn't know nobody there. We went believing that God, who had called us to go into missionary work, will see that his job, the building of the church, goes on. For Jesus said, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. So when we arrived in Ghana, they asked us to go furthest, where they shared a border with Ouagadougou, that's Burkina Faso, and further north, it's Togo there. Is it Togo? I may be mistaken, but it's Togo, Burkina Faso. We went there. And it was very exciting because when we got there, we didn't know anybody, we didn't speak the language, and they told us specifically, you have to learn the language before you plant the church. And I said, our field leader was, when we got to the field, our field leader was an Australian actually. I was going to tell Pastor Kurt that I've dealt with Australians before, and that's why I was handling him well. But he was our field leader. Graham and Marge B were the field leaders there, and they asked us to go into this place where none of the missionaries had been to. So they said, you're going to start a station, a mission station here, and you're going to plant a church. I said, well, that's what I'm going to do, because that's why I'm here. I have to plant churches. So we started, and I've never seen any church started in the style that our church was started. Before I went to Ghana, I had this, I don't know whether some of you who do exercise, called a bull worker. It's a straight thing. It's got ropes on the sides. You can pump in and pump it in, and you build muscles. And good exercise for some of us who do not do exercise. I'm really struggling hard to do exercise. But that's how I started. Every morning I will wake up across the house, lived a Muslim family. And it was, the house belonged to the company, and there were others who worked for the same company who lived in the same building. So every morning I'll come out and I'll pump and I'll do, and of course you would have seen me. And I enjoyed wearing the t-shirts, and I was going like this, you know. And the people who saw me do this, two gentlemen came and said, "Master," everybody's a master there. Anyway, "Master, can we have a go at this thing? What do you call it?" It's a bull worker. Have a go. And they go, yeah. Then I said, the intention, I remember, was to plant the church. Okay, that's why I went there, to plant the church. Never lose focus of your calling, no matter what happens. So they suggested, "Oh, we would like to join you in doing this." I said, "There's only one bull worker, there's 5 of you now, which means the 4 of you have to wait while the other is doing. Let's find some business." I said, we have a plan, sir. Let's cast some concrete into pots as weights. I said, "That's a good idea." And we cast those things, and now, before long, my corridor was a gym. You know, everybody was going, feeling good. And I said, "Well, gentlemen, we should be praying before we start exercising." They said, that's okay. And we agreed on the time, because some of them had to go to work. Said 5 o'clock every morning, we all meet here. I said, "That's okay." And that's what we did. We prayed before we started exercise, and it went on, and I said, "Well, gentlemen, I'm here. I'm from Zambia. I'm here. My mission here is not to do weightlifting. My mission here is to plant the church, a church that will bring glory to Jesus Christ, because I am here because of him. And I'm going to hold the first meeting." We hired the House of Chiefs, which is a pretty good room, and we had our first meeting there. And the church started. It was only one church. Meanwhile, the field leader and the field, they had emphasized, don't start the church until you have learned the language. And I was saying, that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to learn languages. If I want to learn any languages, I will learn it in the church that I plant. So that's what we did. They said, "Okay, start small, you know, don't make it too big, start." So I said, no. I came from a big thing, I can't go to a small thing. Because when I left the church in Mwansa, it was a thriving church, it was a growing church, it was a church that was reaching out, it was a church that had branches. As far as Luwingu, if you know of any PAOG church in Luwingu, that was my branch from Mwansa. We went everywhere, because brothers there had invited us to go and set up the church. So that's what we did. And it was time to come back. When you have growing children, you have to think of your children again. That's another thing. So we came back to the UK. But initially, when I had come and arrived at Manchester Airport, my visa was for missionary work. That's what I came here for also. I came to do missions. So I don't just talk about missions from the book aspect. I talk of missions from experience. I have experiences. So I am here as a missionary even now, even though I've ended up pastoring an church. I think it's part of my calling. Wherever direction God takes me to, that's the path I follow. So that's why I'm here, to share with you. I'm still pastoring a church, which is an Elim church, and we're seeing God doing one of the things. Last Sunday, the woman who has come to our church for three Sundays, after the service, walked up to me and said, Can I ask you something? I said, yes. What is it? He says, I want to become a Christian. Can you pray with me? I prayed with her. She gave her life to the Lord Jesus Christ. And we're so grateful for what is happening. But going back to Ghana, when we left, we planted only 2 churches. They weren't very big churches, but they were lively churches. Now they have more than 50 churches in that area alone. And they still call me, why don't you come? I haven't been there since 1993, but I'm still in contact with the people in the church. And 3 young men I trained are the ones who are running those churches. Suddenly one of them, Clement, answered the call of the Lord. He died a few years ago. But there are others who have been raised to lead the churches. That's what we did. It's about investing in people's lives. But once you are not there, they will carry on with the work. Okay, we're not going to be here forever. We passing by. We are going to die. I know some Christians are scared talking about death as if it is a strange thing. Death will find you, whether you talk about it or not. You still die one day. How do I know? It's appointed unto one to die once. After that comes the judgment. I appreciate the teaching of Pastor Kirk, and I was always saying, please don't touch the line that I'm going to talk about. And surely he didn't. God answered my prayer. So what I'm going to share from is the kind of mentors that lead from behind. Not in the forefront. Not the one who was saying, here I am, do it, and then we will see where it goes. But there will be those people who will be leading or mentoring in the background, behind the scenes. That's the type of character we're going to look at. We have seen that Paul trained Timothy. Do we agree? Amen. Elijah trained Elisha. Naomi, of course, trained the daughter-in-law. Mary, the mother of John, trained Mary, the mother of Jesus. Remember, they were related. Those people were related. Someone had to look to someone. And that's the way it should go. That's how life is. In fact, mentoring is not a new concept. It's an old concept. When you think of the great Michelangelo, the greatest artist, we don't know nothing about who trained him, a man called Bartolo. Bartolo is the one who trained him. And Michelangelo has become, even though he's gone, is the one we talk about. What a great artist, what a great mind. And we praise him, but he had someone who taught him. Debate goes on even up to today, who is the greatest between Michelangelo and Berthold. Well, I know the teacher plays an important part in the life of a student or a pupil. Amen. Paul talks about these things. Be imitators of me, even as I'm an imitator of Christ. Everything, when you look at the life of Paul, we all marvel, we all admire. I wish I could be like Paul. The things he did, the prayers he did, the messages he preached, some of them were long as we heard. Typical African church, and I'm glad I'm here. All right, I thought time was there. The clock was there. Anyway, clocks don't really matter in most cases. Well, it wasn't in Africa. I mean, it's just a story that goes on that the woman and her child went to church, and the pastor stood up to preach, and he went on to the pulpit, and the little boy says, "Mommy, why is pastor going there?" Mother says, "Well, that's where he's going to preach from." Then the pastor cleared his throat and took a glass of water and drank it, and the little boy said, Why is he drinking water? He says, he's clearing his thoughts. His throat, not thoughts. Then the pastor looked at the time. And the boy says to his mom, "Mommy, why is the pastor looking at his watch?" The mom says, "Well, he's looking at his watch. Anyway, when he starts to preach, he doesn't even look at it." But biblical characters, some of one of the fascinating studies that I do is to study Bible characters, like the Abrahams, like the Pauls, like heroes of faith. When you read the book of Hebrews, David is an example also. We read all these things, but there's a man who also, if I ask you, did anybody mentor Paul?
No,
Jesus did. I'm glad I'm here. That's why I prayed to the Lord, God, let Pastor Ken touch that area. That's my area. That's what I want. Paul had a mentor. Of course, Jesus, I'm not denying that Jesus wasn't a mentor. Jesus is a mentor to every one of us. He's our example. We follow him. He's the best example. But Paul, we would not have Paul to be who he was without the mentor we're going to talk about. His name is Barnabas. That was Paul's mentor, Barnabas. And we're going to look at who this Barnabas was. Who is this character that we're looking at? He was a behind the scenes mentor. He's not in the forefront, even though at certain points we see him come in the forefront. But Paul, wherever we read about him, Paul is there, and he seems to be standing a little bit behind, and Paul is pushed in the forefront. Remember, when Paul gets saved, he says in Philippians 1:17, he says he did not go to Jerusalem to be with the apostles, but he went instead to Arabia and stayed there for a period of time. Now, you have to understand that Paul is trying to refute a certain concept that is going wrong there. There were those who believed Paul wasn't an apostle at all. That's why in his letters, in some of the letters, he will state, Paul, an apostle, not by the will of man, but by the will of God.
Amen.
Okay. He is destroying the argument. There are those who said he's not an apostle because he wasn't with the 12. So he cannot be an apostle. Paul said, because they argued, an apostle has to be one who walked with Jesus, one who was taught by Jesus, and Paul, one who saw Jesus. And Paul is saying, I have all those things. I saw Jesus. I was with him. And they're asking him, when? When? He says, I met him on the road to Damascus. He appeared to me. Paul then tells us, with the relationship that he had actually with Barnabas, I've said he's a behind the scenes character, a man who's mentioned 23 times in the book of Acts alone. and 5 times in the Pauline epistles, the letters of Paul. Because epistles are simply